going to be a video that goes over the notes for writing an equation of a line given 2 points or writing the equation of a line given point and a slope. So the notes that we talked about in class were if you're given, like in example 1, the slope of a line and then also the point, how to come up with the equation of a line. There's kind of 2 methods to it. The first way you can do this, and this is without filling in the notes part, is you can actually just graph it. So if I graph 5, negative 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then down 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and then using the slope to go backwards to find your y-intercept. So up, because I can go down, down 2 into the right one, but that's not going to take me. If I go backwards, just kind of keep on rolling. There it is. It's crossing through the, oops, it looks like 4. So the equation for this line would be y equals negative 2x plus 4. So that's kind of the first way. You can always graph it, but I'm also going to go over the algebraic method for doing this. It doesn't really matter which one you choose, but if you don't have graph paper near it, can be kind of helpful to just use the algebraic method. So the first thing that you're going to do is you're going to plug in your point and the slope, or m, into y equals mx plus b. Then we're going to actually solve for the b. And the last part is that we'll rewrite it as y equals mx plus b. And we're going to keep the x and the y, and we're going to plug in the y-intercept and the slope. So the way you would kind of work on this problem is if I write down, for each one of these, you're always going to write your equation first, y equals mx plus b. And you are given some information. The first thing is that the slope is negative 2, so we're going to plug that in there. And then I'm also given that 5 is your x, so we can substitute that in for the x in the equation. And the last part, I'm like trying to pick a color that we don't really, green, is the negative 6. And that's going to go for your y value. And you remember your coordinates. So you're plugging in 5 for x and then negative 6 for y. So if I substitute all that in, I get negative 6 equals negative 2 times 5 plus b. And then you can simplify that to negative 10. And then to solve for b, you would just add 10 to both sides. And you get 4. So that's your y-intercept. But the whole equation would be y equals mx plus b. So y equals negative 2x plus 4. And again, you could check that by graphing that line and making sure that it does, in fact, let me just like circle this point, it does in fact go through 5 negative 6s right there. So it works. Excuse me. Okay, so a practice one of this would be, we're going to do the same thing. So y equals 1/2 x plus b, because my slope is 1/2, so that's where that's coming from. And then we're going to go ahead and plug in 4 is going to go where the x is, and 2 is your y value, so that's going to go in for the y. So you're going to have 2 equals 1/2 times 4 plus b. 2 equals 2 plus b, minus 2 on both sides, b equals 0. So your whole equation will be y equals 1/2 x plus 0, or just y equals 1/2 x. And you could check that by, again, graphing the line. So if I graph the line y equals 1/2 x, I start at 0, up 1/2. And after you graph it, you're going to check to make sure that this point here is on it. So 4, 2, boom, right there. So you can make sure it's right. Okay. The second part of this would be if we're finding equations given 2 points, so we don't actually have the slope or the y-intercept. So the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to find the slope. And then once you do that, you're going to follow kind of those same steps. You're going to plug in a point, it doesn't matter which one, and the slope into y equals mx plus b. Then we'll solve for b, and then we'll rewrite the equation the same way we did last time, where we keep the x and the y. So for this one, we're going to first find the slope. So that's going to be change of y over change of x. When I go from 2 to 0, I'm going down by 2. When I go from 1 to 3, I'm going up by 2. So that'll simplify to just -1. So we're going to get y equals mx plus b. And now we know, wow, why is that so, I hit that too many times, that our slope is -1. And we can grab either point. I'm going to pick the first one, but you could pick the second one, doesn't matter. There's where your x goes in for the x. And then the 2 is going to go in for the y. And so that's going to be 2 equals m, which is -1, times 1 plus b. And then we just go ahead and solve, add 1 to both sides, that's 3. So our whole equation would be y equals -1x plus 3, or y equals -x plus 3. And again, we can check it if we plot both those points 1, 2, and 3, 0. And I connect them like this. There we go. And that does match. So if I start at 3, I'm going to go down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1, down 1 over 1. It checks. Okay. I'm going to work out these last two problems. So find the equation that goes to the points 5, 6, and -3, 6. So we're going to do the same thing. We'll find the slope first, change of y over change of x. My y is changing by 0. It's going 6 to 6. My x is changing by -8, 5 to -3. Remember that 0 divided by anything besides 0 is always 0. So it's y equals 0x plus b. And then we could plug in, we'll plug in the first point, I guess. The 5 is going to go in for the x. The 6 is going to go in for the y. So we're going to get 6 equals 0 times 5 plus b, which is 6 to 0 plus b, which is 6. So your equation will be y equals 0x plus 6, or just y equals 6. And actually, this is one of those special cases because both of my 6's are in the y's value. So I actually could just look at that. Anytime you have duplicating in either the x or the y, that's always whatever your equation is. Okay, so the last one here, we do change of y over change of x. Change of y, it's going from 10 to -1, so it's going down 11, and 5 to 5. Now we can't divide by 0, so if you remember, this slope is undefined. And when you have an undefined slope, that means it's going to be x equals something. So for this case, it's both of our x's, again, have the same value. They're both 5. So that would actually be your equation, would be x equals 5. Okay, thanks for watching. Hope